Thank you for joining our Interlink Edge webinar series. Today we're focusing on the Network Threat Landscape 2025 with insights from FastNetMon and Inter.link. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our very own Ciprian Abaseaca to lead this intimate fireside chat.
Perfect. Thank you for this, Martina. Hi, Pavel. It's very nice to have you here to start this discussion. So I don't know, are we waiting a little bit more for some more people to join in, or would you like to just start?
People are joining by the minute, so I think you can get started and I'll catch up once they get here.
Perfect. Then I can kick it off. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our series of webinars. We actually chose to start after the summer with a very cool topic, I would say, with the anti-DDoS climate and what's happening right now in this side of the cybersecurity world. And for this, we have been deciding to discuss a little bit with Pavel, which it's definitely a great person to provide insights from this industry and what's happening on the anti-DDoS world. So before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Ciprian Abaseaca. I'm working with Inter.link and handling as well partially this side of the anti-DDoS services in terms of helping customers onboard together with my colleagues. So um, on that note, I will also give it to Pavel, who is part of FastNetMon, actually co-founder of FastNetMon, which will do a great job introducing himself.
Thank you very much for making this webinar possible, and it's a great pleasure to have my voice here. And so I'm Pavel, I'm founder of FastNetMon. I've been working in cybersecurity field for more than I would say 13 years, and it's exciting, right? It's getting more exciting with every single year, and we getting into very dynamic landscape with basically every quarter moving forward, and we will discuss all hot details on this webinar today.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And yes, indeed, without further ado, I think that what we will discuss today is going to be quite interesting, especially for our industry, right? This affects, I think, absolutely everybody, even they do know it or they don't know it, in some direct way or indirect way, because I think everybody has an internet access and everybody needs services to connect in one way or another. That's what we are doing right away, obviously, at this moment. And for this reason, I think it's important for, let's say, the engineers, the CTOs, the technical people in our webinar presence right now, and to discuss how is this happening at this moment in 2025, what companies like FastNetMon do against such attacks, what Interlink does. But again, this is not going to be about our companies, but more about what is the situation at this moment and how attacks are affecting everybody. And obviously, with some key insight of what we know and what we see within our companies, because recently everything changed. Lots of new updates, new records. Everything is changing as we speak. So I think you will have a lot of fun watching what we'll discuss right now. So I think this will help starting and setting the scene, discussing a bit about what are the trends at the moment. What have you seen from your side? Because to also add from my side, FastNetMon is doing a great job on detecting and routing against such attacks. Well, Interlink, it's on the other side of the event itself, helping with mitigation of the attacks itself. So it's a great partnership, I would say, in that way to keep end customers safe. So without anything on that, I would ask, what do you see? What's happening in the anti-DDoS or the DDoS world at this moment, Pavel?
So there is a lot of activity in the DOS field right now, and just less than 1 week ago, we detected enormous attack, which was on scale of 1.5 gigapackets per second. And what makes it a very unique one is that we have detected that over at least for 2 different deployments we have observed, and in the same time we got very solid feedback from different DDoS scribing companies which were hit around the same time, and it's actually exactly same botnet which was detected by G-Core Labs, Cloudflare, and we have seen them walking from one large DDoS scrubbing center to another, and also we can see impact of transit providers from this kind of botnet. That's latest development, but I would not say it's just appeared out of nowhere. They have been doing their groundwork to make it possible over summer, and they did actually test runs, not on full capacity, but maybe as soon as they built number of nodes for their botnet. They tried it against few actors, but not with full power. And then in September, they unleashed full power of this botnet. And unfortunately for everyone involved, it's a very affordable botnet. And previously, this scale of attack was available only for what media loves to call state actors, enormous budgets, lots of infrastructure. But this one is, I would say, it's hard to say it's affordable, but they can claim that you can buy 7 terabit attack for as low as $1,500. Of course, paid in USDT, in cryptocurrency. But this scale of attack, it's not danger for website, it's not danger for telecom company, is on the level to pose danger to all countries, because 7 terabits, there are lots of countries which don't have that enough capacity outside, and this is a level which was never expected to grow that much. And that's latest development, and our view on it, it's getting into mainstream scale.
I 100% agree. I think that even from my side, I see discussions that networks face right now. Even the smallest problems become very, very big ones. And it's so easy to deploy a DDoS attack at the moment that even kids do it. I've had customers even calling me that, which all started during pandemic, true, because everything moved to the online. Kids, they were targeting their school, their universities in order to take down and, stay at home without having to have, school online. And this translates now with other even bigger issues, because as the world is moving even more towards an internet proactive solution, like even surgeries are happening now in real time from a doctor being in a different continent, operating in a different one. This is actually a matter of life and death in very, very various circumstances. So yes, this is really, really a problem nowadays. We see it constantly. I think you see it at the forefront of it. We see it as well, and we try to make things possible for networks out there to be safe and to be protected against DDoS attacks. So I think a question would be in general, what do you see in terms of why is DDoS such a powerful tool? Why is such a persistent attack? Because we both know that there are many other tools, right? You can either do, let's say, hacking or try to attack a network, or not necessarily a network, some services in different ways, but still DDoS remains the most used one. So in that way, I would ask you, what makes it so attractive for attackers? If you can share some insight on that.
Actually, I've been thinking how I see DDoS from the most closer comparison I have in my brain. It's a very reliable weapon, because there are lots of types of weapon, and we invented lots of different ways, starting from different knives, swords, firearms, bombs, and some of them are not very nice, and some not very reliable, very complicated to operate, and it's not a joy to use them. But DDoS is something which works in majority of cases. It's very versatile. It's not required to have any training. Again, as I highlighted, you just need to have enough USDT, and you need to get familiar with dark web to find proper website, place payment, and of course you have to understand what will be consequences, because in majority of countries worldwide, it's a crime. It's not borderline crime, it's clear crime, and person who actually running botnet. And of course, there are criminals and people who actually buy their services, they also expose themselves to potential criminal charges. It's a very dangerous game. But again, many people, they may decide to just ignore the law. And of course, they will face consequences. Even if person who actually run botnet and run attack right now may feel invincible for weeks, months, FBI and other law enforcement agencies, they have long story, and you may be charged like few years later or maybe decades later as part of different larger case. But at the same time, I would say, because for DDoS you don't need to invest a lot to find out what is the target. You need to invest. You don't need to invest to understand what is the type of target. You just get this weapon and it works against majority of threats, and it's powerful. And DDoS itself sounds cool. Not so many DDoS attack types they call. They have such short name. It's DDoS, and it even sort of sounds scary. It's like it sounds like bomb. Like everyone's scared about bombs, and then why not be scared about DDoS? And of course, there are lots of different types. And what we also have seen, DDoS is the most powerful, but I would not say it's the most dangerous. It's a short disruption, but in the same time, for real, well-prepared attack, DDoS is just one part in military, like I would say, in military operation. It's maybe just distraction, because if you don't have reliable DDoS detection and DDoS attack starts against your network, every single engineer will be occupied by this topic. And then real actor will sneak for a real target in your network, which may be database or some kind of asset like cryptocurrency, for example. And that's why it's getting more into arsenal of multiple weapons. But of course, it's very efficient one, unfortunately, because it works. You can use it against website, you can use it against network, you can use it against some specific device. It just works, and not so many things on our planet actually works that reliably, not to like crumble in your hands when you start using them.
Unfortunately, that is very true, yes. And most of the time, it's just a smoke screen for something that happens behind the scenes, a different target or something else behind it. Nevertheless, it's very effective taking down directly the network. This actually takes me to the idea of what changed in recent years, and I think that we have something prepared for that a little bit. If you can share that, perfect. Thank you very much, Martina. So this is actually being shared by FastNetMon, and I think it's quite cool to actually go through as in terms of timeline. Because we've seen recently, when we look back, like 1988, we would look at the Morris worm, something that it's, if we look back at this moment, it's non-existing, right? It also many of these up to, let's say, to the 21st century, at this moment looks such a distant history, maybe not, I mean, I wasn't alive in those times when this started, to be honest. So, looking far now, what's happening at this moment and the scale of attacks and how easy it is to be deployed, as you said, pretty much is the word affordable. It's a bad word to attach to DDoS, but it is, unfortunately. And it's such a used tool to take down networks or to just attack competition and so on. So, we see this as we discussed in the past. I mean, for example, 1.7 terabits attack used to be a huge thing, right? It would make the news. It would be something that would take on so many resources from so many added botnets in order to take on. So it would not be so many that could do it, which if we move a little bit to the next slide and you would see what's happening right now, let's say in from 2019 to right now 2025, this is something that can be used to target a single particular network, which can take down, let's talk about, for example, the 3.25 terabits of UDP on Azure, as you have here. This was something, as you mentioned, normally would not be such a big problem, would not be so easy to take on at these days, but back then would have been a huge problematic thing. And we see this changing. I think 7.3 used to be when these slides were put together, which is again not the highest at the moment, right? You have also some insights that you've been dealing with a huge number of accumulated DDoS attacks, and I can tell you can tell the number itself without me spoiling it for the audience.
Yeah, so this is a great diagram, but on one side it may be very frustrating, but I don't want to have this conversation to be grim. It's very encouraging, and let me explain why. Because uh, transit capacity is also growing on extraordinary speed, and growth in DDoS attacks, because DDoS attack is uh, I would say it's a crucial life of internet activity. Back in time, it was uh, labeled as inconvenience, which may disappear if we build better tools, if we maintain, or I would say, our ecosystem very clean, update all software in time. But this time we have to admit it's a part of ecosystem. It's a part of internet. It will never disappear at all. We may reduce impact from it, but we may uh, uh, detect it faster, but it will be here. It's exactly as we cannot fight crime completely. We can reduce it to the level which makes it tolerable, but total elimination is impossible. And we can see extraordinary growth in scale of attack. But at the same time, according to numbers I know, real capacity of world increases at way faster rates, I would say hundreds or thousand times more than those that grow. And internet is growing exponentially, and it's a great thing to have it because without having capacity for 7.3 terabits, you cannot run this kind of attack. And if this attack did not actually ruin internet, because we already have seen reports from media about this attack, but we haven't seen reports from media about global internet outage. It did not happen. It did not actually broke out even single country. And it's impressive, which means we have enormous capacity in place, which elevates us to just process this amount of traffic, mitigate it, deliver it to actually, and by the fact that this amount of traffic was delivered to victim is impressive because it means,
Very
and
true.
yeah, and latest attack, what we discovered from our site, which was 1.5 giga packets per second, was delivered from as far as Brazil to scribing center in Western Europe. Actually, with quite great reliability because back in time, internet wasn't that stable. We had packet loss. And this time, it was just perfectly finally delivered like a parcel and it was received by scribing center, discarded as much as possible, and then service continued to work. And I think it's a great thing to look on the DOS stuff. It's more about a marker of development of internet, not a good thing at all.
It's true, yes. I think Moore's law, it's truly active and it actually provides a key insight of what's happening with the growth of the capacity itself. And we see attacks of 7.3 terabits and even, I mean, recently reports of 11.5 terabits of attack as the new heights. So since we prepared this, it's already changed. So that's what's scary, I would say. And as you said, also we see traffic also from various regions. And the sad part, or not necessarily sad, but the intriguing part is that most of these attacks come from reliable sources. I mean, there are some not necessarily many people think that whoever deploys the DDoS attacks, it's using it through whatever network that is the boogeyman, or it's somebody that is specific that you could maybe block out either region, either a particular set of IPs, an ASN, and so on and so forth, which is, I think you can agree, not entirely true because most of these attacks definitely come from reliable sources as well because if we take the top 10 sources of DDoS attacks, you will definitely see very, very well-known names that are not attached to, let's say, a dark web or any fishy kind of services or any kind of malicious acts. However, every business out there needs to have customers, and with customers and a big number of customers also come the ones that you cannot really be 100% protected against what they do within your network. And I think this is a very well correlated with the fact that many of these attacks come through the outbound traffic that some generate. And you also mentioned that in that regard, outbound, it's quite interesting to see that not many networks out there do take care of what outbound traffic is being generated from their networks. And this is what add up to such huge amounts of traffic being targeted to some networks itself. So please go ahead if you have anything to add on this particular note. What do you think from your side networks should do in order to protect of against being used to be deploying such attacks?
Yeah, actually, a recent attack, what we discovered and researched it well enough, was generated by hacked CPE devices deployed mostly in Latin America, to be specific in Brazil, but there are a list of other countries in Asia and in Western Europe and United States. But majority of attack capacity was coming from Brazil, and it was implemented by basically finding out vulnerability in their CPE devices. And I mean, by fact that they actually found something in CPE device means that CPE device was exposed to internet, which is itself bad security practice and so on. And then they found vulnerability in it and then installed their own DDoS bot. We just started sending traffic towards victim, and it caught even companies who actually operated by surprise, because normally for broadband provider you don't expect that you have your outbound capacity saturated. And that's what exactly happened. And many networks in Brazil, they run on MikroTiks, not for CPE devices, but for backbone of network, for border routers. And as MikroTik is software router, they started seeing degradation in their network, which is quite exceptional because they haven't been a target of attack. They were a source of attack. And previously, when grass was greener and devices were slower, CP device wasn't capable to generate that much traffic to actually cause disruption. And what we have seen basically over the last 2 weeks, extraordinary growth and demand of outbound attack detection, because previously there was no motivation to detect outgoing attacks, because first for broadband providers, of course, because they have plenty of outbound capacity. It's not used by real customers because they are mostly inbound first. But at the same time, if attack started from them, from their hacked devices, from hacked Android malware, from hacked PC, it wasn't that fast enough. But this particular botnet generates enormous traffic just to cause disruption for network itself. And can you imagine? And for this specific attack, we have seen a few thousands of ISN numbers generating this traffic. So basically, it was coming from 11,000 of unique prefixes, which belong to around a few thousand of different companies. And you can imagine what is the scale of it.
Exactly.
And it just highlights that our industry has quite low standard for security. And what I can recommend that we need, every company has to understand what happening in their network. So our first solution is not about, even if company doesn't care about it, or they never had it, just to have very detailed and precise network visibility. Because when something starts going on in your network, your customers complain packet loss. It may be DDoS, it may be not. It may be incoming DDoS, as we heard. It's obvious, but it may be outbound DDoS at the same time. And this one is not easy to find out because majority of DDoS solutions, they were built around assumptions that DDoS is coming from the outside.
Exactly.
But when it's coming from inside, they can pass because it's out of scope. Nobody expected that it will go this way. And my basic recommendation is just to ensure that you understand major flows of your traffic. Your traffic should not double overnight. Your inbound should not triple overnight. And if it's happening, please investigate it and please have some kind of automated tooling to notify network engineers to look more precise around TCP dump, run logs, and talk with industry. And it's the best way to exchange ideas. Like just tell people, look, something weird going on in my network. Please tell me if you have seen something similar. And network engineers will love sharing stuff. Like, oh yes, I seen it.
I
Let's
think
talk about it.
Exactly. This is the idea of this webinar itself as well, to share some ideas, to share what do you do on your side, what do we do on our side, and how do we cooperate in order to keep the internet a little bit more safe, at least on our side. And I'm getting always this question on what is a good strategy, what should a network do in order to be more safe. I think the reality here is that nowadays, even if you haven't been a target of a DDoS attack, it's unfortunately sorry to say this to you, but it's just a matter of time. This is statistic, is not me. I'm not trying to scare anybody here, but I've had many discussions which happened even overnight that they've got a DDoS attack even though they didn't have any such activity in the past. And the only good way of protecting against it is to make sure that you have a well-trained team, that your team knows what to do in this particular situation, to make sure that your upstream provider has contingency plans and has DDoS protection themselves. And not just one of those providers, but pretty much all of them should be protected against such attacks. I know might come with a price tag, but this is the reality of it, because being down should come and will come with a much, much bigger price tag as a side note. And also, working with a third-party provider generally means that you do have a protected door that you could use in case of such a thing. However, if you don't have the upstreams that you normally use, it's still going to be a problem until you activate such a thing, or you have increased latency, or you have so many other issues that might come alongside. And I think this takes me to your view on what's happening to the next period at this moment. What do you see happening in the future? What are, let's say, a prediction? I don't know. I know you don't do predictions, but what do you think would be the next big thing, or what should we be protected against?
Let's start from obvious stuff. We expect that the scale of bandwidth will grow, the number of bots will grow, because again, it's just a function of internet growth. But what we have seen already, and I haven't mentioned it yet, that we have seen transit providers to being victims and targets of DDoS attacks previously. Nobody actually had courage to attack a transit provider itself. Usually it was collateral damage. For example, some game server or gambling site, or like freedom, for example, media, which like pushes hard freedom of speech, was a target. And then their internet service provider or their hosting provider fall off victim of an attack of enormous scale. But what we have seen over the course of basically last 4 months, the transit providers itself became target. DDoS scribing providers themselves became target. And previously, we had mixed reports that their infrastructure may have been target. But recently, we got very solid confirmation that attack was absolutely sure targeted against transit provider itself. It wasn't collateral damage, it wasn't mistake, it wasn't against specific customers, it was well-planned attack against transit provider.
Very good.
What was motivation? Unfortunately, we haven't been able to find out. But that's the thing we need to keep in mind. But at the same time, what we can see from dynamic of attack, skill of attackers is growing. It's a well-established industry. It's as established as airlines. It's as established as financial systems. Those market has well-established economical relationship, what makes it sustainable. It will not go anywhere. There is a crowd who actually works to find out vulnerabilities. It's sold on market. Then it's bought by botnet operators. And botnet operators, they have multiple levels of resellers of different kinds. First-tier resellers, second-tier resellers. Then finally, we have self-service services called booters. But they are not operating botnet themselves. They just rent it from somebody else. And you can see we have thousands, maybe tens or 100,000 people involved in this industry, and they have knowledge, they have skill, they have expertise, and their operations are well funded, because you can see they have very little expenses. They need to find out vulnerable devices in some countries, collect them, infect them, and run. And after that, they just sell it for like thousands of dollars every case. And even just number of attacks, what we have detected, what we have been able to investigate and confirm via industry, because we have lots of intelligence sharing in place, and we are part of intelligence sharing network worldwide. And even if we expect that we got at least 5% of those reports, their scale is enormous, and they're making enough money to get more people in this industry, to get smarter people to cross the line of law. Instead of working for system administrator or software engineer, they may decide to take risk and cross the law, face criminal charges in future, but then build botnet and use it against. And we need to keep in mind that we may expect attacks on parts of infrastructure which weren't expected to be a target of attack.
True.
Because what we already have seen exactly with this recent incident, we expect a majority of people and majority of companies in telecom expect incoming DDoS, but they fall victim of outgoing DDoS attack. But at the same time, previously we expected that attack will be against customer. What we got? Attack against our own infrastructure, our own routers. And my generic recommendation, it will be just to use and incorporate DDoS mitigation into part of network design.
Exactly.
For many years, for many decades, DDoS was considered to be optional, additional service. It should not be treated this way. It should be part of operations. Even every single network engineer has to be trained, not to perfection, of course, but for basics of DDoS attack. And every single company has to be familiar with DDoS itself, even if company uses scribing center, both from their ISP or from industry leading scribing service. They still need to maintain this kind of expertise, because even if you leverage on DDoS scribing in cloud, attack may hit your infrastructure. Attackers may find the way to overload your private connectivity link towards this cloud provider. They may find out what is the region you actually connect with them, and then fill capacity for it. You need to be very paranoid, and I would say in DDoS defense, being paranoid is a professional skill which you need to not to just suppress but to grow. You need to expect that attackers will use ways and holes in your infrastructure which never actually used as DDoS attack. And the other thing, we need to be more attentive and we need to think as a broad picture, because attacks, DDoS attacks are part of larger operation, more complex operations. They may involve attack on financial systems. They may involve attack on telephone systems. They may involve attack on physical infrastructure, building, for example. And that's why it needs to be in DNA of company, and everyone in telecom company need to be at least familiar what to do in case of DDoS. And then we will be protected from new potential vectors, and we will act swiftly when we see them.
Correct. I completely agree. And just to be aware of time, because fortunately, this is such a huge topic, and I think we need to do a series for sure, because you are definitely at the forefront of this battle, and we are as well. And just to take also some questions, if you can help with this, Martina.
Yeah, we have a couple questions here. Thank you guys for submitting them. I think we have time for just one or two. So the first one is, what are the most common mistakes organizations still make when defending against DDoS?
Well, I don't know. Would you want, or I should answer this one, Pavel?
Please do it.
I can definitely answer in a very, very few words. I would say that it's also called the myth, that it's called the harmless DDoS. I would say that's the first mistake that industry does, because they believe that either if they haven't had a DDoS attack until now, they will never have one, which is very, very misconception, a very big misconception of the trend itself. And second of all, that if they get a DDoS attack, it's going to be not harmful to them, or they can do just black holing and they are safe against such a things. I think that is 100% incorrect, because the amount of save money. A company could save by not having something in place compared to what is there to lose. If something like this happens, it's incomparable because nowadays, as I said in the beginning, the internet services require 100% uptime, and not even a single small dent into this uptime is worthwhile, no matter how much the cost would be. Then there are so many affordable solutions out there. There are community features, there are BGP flow specs that if you don't want to work with any particular provider, you can involve yourself and be prepared for something like this. Exactly as Pavel said a little bit earlier, it's a matter of willingness, not a matter of spending on a solution for this. If that's what the network itself it's planning to do. Hope this answers it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one last question. So, attacks are increasingly less focused on a single service, but are often targeted at a provider's entire network. Do you think DDoS mitigation solutions need to become smarter?
I think you just said that's Pavel, but please go ahead.
Absolutely. Like as the DOS software vendor, we invest basically major part of our financial resources into development of different parts of our product to make it faster, adapt new threats, and we can see exactly same approach from telecom vendors. For example, we have got new state-of-the-art network telemetry protocols from Juniper, from it's called inline monitoring services. Cisco has similar offering called IPFix 315. We got great improvements from Nokia in their samplet mirroring, telemetry monitoring. And those changes, they allow us to make more informed decisions because previously we had very limited understanding what kind of traffic absorbed by routers because standard IPFix or NetFlow, it provides just information which vendor decided to share with us. But with those modern protocols, which actually carry part of payload of traffic, we can make informed decision and we not just saying, look, we have lots of traffic from port 53, which may be legitimate or not. We receive payload and we can look on it, run DPI inspection, look, this one is for sure malicious and it's part of answer from well-known memcached server, which is vulnerable and deployed in this specific country. And in the same time, we need more assistance from internet service providers, from the transit providers. For example, when we detect attack, which has multiple targets, it's very challenging for us as a product. It's hard. We need to aggregate via prefix. Instead of looking on specific host, we need to look on whole prefix and we need to analyze what's going on here. But it's just part of challenge. If attack is going against single IP and you're a transit provider and attack is, let's say, 1 terabit and you don't have 1 terabit, you can black hole it. Basically just shut down all the traffic for this host. Of course, customer will not like it, but we are network engineers. Our purpose to keep network running, and sometimes temporary sacrifice is unavoidable. But if attack is going on over multiple IPs, hundreds of them, we cannot block all of them. And that's how BGP flow spec may help all of us. We can run BGP flow spec instead of making black hole. We can run the flow spec rule, and flow spec is supported by basic every single large vendor. Huawei, Nokia, Arista, Extreme, Juniper, all of them have very solid support for BGP flow spec. It's a mature protocol. It's 20 plus year old right now. Oldest implementation is in Juniper. And it can reliably filter out not just traffic to specific host, but traffic for whole network. Let's say filter out all traffic which is coming from port 1 to 3, uses protocol UDP, and length of this packet is, let's say, 200 bytes. Then done. But it's part of problem. We can do it on network we operate, network we have access for. But at the same time, when we run out of capacity, we cannot do anything. And that's how cross ISN BGP flow spec may be very helpful. And we have seen multiple tier 1 providers running BGP flow spec and actually allowing their customers to rely on their network via BGP flow spec rules to filter out traffic. So it's a way to use, it's like BGP black hole, but way smarter. You can ask your tier one provider to filter, let's image all UDP traffic for you. And I would love to see more development in this field, because this is the only way how we can reliably stop this kind of attack with assistance of internet service providers and without being limited by bandwidth of network itself. And I hope more companies will adopt BGP flow spec, and even as not for free, of course, as we have for BGP black hole, but more as additional value service. And it will be very helpful, because by doing so, majority of networks will be able to defend themselves from most dangerous attacks without actually relying on any third-party services, which is, I would say, great. And it's a great contribution to stability and reliability of internet in general.
Exactly.
Thank you. I think we're out of time, but that was great. And I just want to let anybody know that both Ciprian and Pavel are available for questions through LinkedIn. Send them an email. You can reach out to Interlink and we'll make sure the email gets into the right place. And we'll definitely have to run this as an ongoing series because there's just so much to talk about.
Very true. I think that's all. Very happy to have this done, Pavel. Thank you for joining me and have this discussion. And I agree. Let's have a series.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you for a great session. And thank you everyone for joining us. And if you have any questions, LinkedIn, all social media channels, I will be happy to answer. And let's
Thank you
continue.
both so much. This has been really great. And thank you to our audience for the great Q&As and being with us for today.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye bye.